Hello folks, welcome to this video. I'm Captain Racing Encyclopedias, where we fire off into the week in the general notice, look at what's coming up on this channel and what's coming up in the world of motorsport. Starting off, on this channel I want to do a proper review for the London E-Prix as well as for Bahrain Czech Rally's Lynn. I got an instant reaction out yesterday from the XL itself. That was a fun one to sit down and record. But yeah, over the course of this week we've got F1 in the Netherlands to look forward to. We've got WRC Paraguay next weekend, so I'm going to put my preview out this week. And I'm hoping to get a review out for Zandvoort on Sunday, as well as reviews for last weekend's action for NASCAR and IndyCar from Richmond and Markham respectively. Maybe we do Supercars catch up this week, especially because Ipswich is on this weekend. And then we do Super Formula over the next couple of weeks, as well as some Super GT. Anyways, mentioned Formula E a couple of times, haven't I? Two drivers have received penalties after the London E-Prix finale. Both of them, for instance, were Jake Dennis. One of them was Pascal Wehrlein, the now two-time champion, and the other, Antonio Felix da Costa. Da Costa defended quite fiercely against Wehrlein. Wehrlein claimed he was unsporting. I don't know. It's Formula E. These are Formula E things. I was surprised how offended Wehrlein got because, as Da Costa pointed out, Nico Müller did more or less the same thing on Saturday and tried to at the start of Sunday's race. But, yeah. I think these penalties are somewhat fair. I do feel that Wehrlein's is light. But I feel that Wehrlein's is light, not because of the championship implications. I really couldn't care so much about that. I care about it because he took Joel Eriksson out the race from that. Like, he was aggressive, right? He did a Verstappen back out or he crashed thing, and it didn't and did work at the same time. It didn't work in that there was a crash. It did work in that Jake Dennis was out of title contention. But we can't judge what would have happened between him and Dennis because of the fact that in trying to defend from Dennis, he just piled into the back of Joel Eriksson. He was like, oh no, Eriksson was going slowly. Maybe, but you have to judge yourself based off the car in front. Now, the 5-second penalty gets converted to a three-place grid drop for the next race that they take part in. So, probably just going to have 3 places dropped at the start of Gen 4. I think it probably could have been a 10-second. He did, after all, end someone's race through it. Because that was what the contact was going to do to Joel Eriksson's car. And it was Wehrlein's fault. But I don't think... I've jokingly referred to it as a kind of Jerez 97. Welcome back, Jerez 97. And whilst he did hit the right part of him to, define the championship, it isn't any kind of Schumacher on Villeneuve move. Anyways, enough about that, and over to rallying. Dirtfish has put out a couple of pieces about the upcoming changes for WRC27. And it's just because there aren't that many things that are attracting the new manufacturers at the moment. We've just heard that Project Rally 1, or it's now being called Rally 1 Project, is likely to have one car for Monte Carlo, the second chassis for later in the year, and they're expecting to do half the season next season. Basically, the tarmac rounds. That's their plan. They're not looking at doing gravel, and they're pretty much ruling out Sweden. But, yeah. The gravel testing through next year. Their engine is based off of, according to Dirtfish, the FIA Rally 2 unit, but they're looking at building their own engine in-house by the end of the season. But that's the only one we've really gotten word on. We haven't gotten any more word on the Spanish project at the moment. And so the FIA has changed the rules, saying, okay, if you're going to take part, it's 15 events over 2 years. So you can do 2 half seasons. That'll be fine. And then, in addition to that, they can join halfway through the season and score points. And they're also reducing the entrance fee for constructors. Now, this is because the FIA was like, oh yeah, we got like 10 to 15 constructors looking at joining. And we've seen, what, 2? There's half doing it. Hyundai have not committed to it. In fact, Thierry Neuville has been saying so much as his plan is to stay with Hyundai next season. Whatever they do, Rally 2 or whatever. But they've not confirmed a Rally 2 kit car. I think the only team that has is M Sport. Because always like, why would we do that? We're building the WRC27 car. We don't need to do a Rally 2 kit car for the GR Yaris. And Skoda have ruled it out. Lancia have been like, oh, if it meets the metrics, which is more or less ruling it out. It's a tricky time for the WRC. And I would say it's on the FIA. One of the things that I would say is this current generation of rule set that is coming in to FIA sanctioned sports should lay with the president. The president who, you and I might remember, has been bad-mouthing these rules, at least in the F1 sense, since they were first drafted up. The FIA president shouldn't do that. The FIA president also should be at World Championship events, full stop. I didn't see him in London this past weekend. I don't remember seeing him at a WRC round, except for maybe the Monty this year. And even then, I don't remember seeing him at the Monty. But he shows up at every F1 weekend. Jean Todt didn't do that. Max Mosley didn't do that. It makes me feel like Mohammed Ben Sulayem is sort of a Donald Trump figure, you know? Wants to be in front of as many cameras as possible, trying to get as much attention as possible. Does the self-insert into the Lego race because he's the FIA president? Yeah, he should be in the Lego race. Why isn't he in the Lego race? He should be. He's driven an F1 car before, and that didn't end badly at all. Yeah. It's one of those tricky ones. It feels like the guy he used to buy his cars off of, Malcolm Wilson, is the person that's shipped off to do the rallying stuff. Much like Robert Reid for him. And for an FIA president that was a rally man at heart, supposedly, that is disappointing. I remember how many rallycross events he's shown up at as FIA president. But I feel like he should be at more. At least a more even balance between that and his F1 commitments. But speaking of the FIA has decided that they are lifting the restrictions on Russian drivers and teams, allowing them to compete again. They're not allowing competitions to take place in Russia or Belarus, but their drivers are now going to be allowed to compete, and the signing of a commitment to neutrality no longer applies. So previously you had you have to sign basically saying that you condemned the invasion of Ukraine. It's interesting. I don't think they're the first ones to do it, are they? Because I think the IOC had done some bits and pieces already. The FIM is continuing to implement this ban, by the way, which would make, if we had any Russian or Belarusian Dakar competitors, it would make next year interesting. It could mean the Kamaz return to the Dakar. But it does also mean that if you are a Russian national, it creates an interesting conundrum, especially because in some cases, travelling as a Russian national could mean you face travel restrictions. Like, think of someone like, well, Robert Schwartzman. Oh, he's in IndyCar anyway, but would he compete under a Russian flag again, or would he continue to compete under the Israeli flag? Nikolai Gryazev, who competes under a Bulgarian flag. I think Konstantin Alexandrov, his co-driver, is under a Kyrgyzstan. I think he's under the flag of Kyrgyzstan. Would they go back to using Russian flags? Or how about someone who's on their way up the ladder, like Solov? He's reading under a Bulgarian license. It creates this weird, like, almost sponsorship opportunity in the way that FIFA sees it with the different players who could play for different nationalities. Would you choose to return to having this Russian sponsorship to get, like, sponsors, actual sponsors with monetary value attached to them? Or would you stick with your other one? I have a feeling that, well, I'm almost certain Alexei Liakanya, for example, would want to go back to the Cypriot, or keep the Cypriot one that he's currently doing. I mean, he for years, I remember since 2014, he was quite outspoken on the crises going on in Ukraine in terms of being critical of Russia. Daniel Kvyat, I would assume, would consider continuing with the Italian flag. But I don't know. Gryazev, I know, lost out sponsorship-wise because he had a lot of Russian backing in the past. But I'd be interested to see what the likes of Solov, Gryazev, or someone like Kvyat would do, like Schwartzman. I'm also interested to see if this would be something, like I mentioned at the top of this, could bring Kamaz back to the Dakar. After a few years away, would they come back and immediately be back at the top? We'll have to wait and see, won't we? But thanks for watching and joining, folks. As always, thank you for your continued support. Last week, we passed our 12-year mark, and so many of you have been coming in and watching the content. Thanks for all your continued support. It means the world. But till next time, as always, bye for now.